Welcome back. The Washington Quarter may look like an ordinary piece of pocket change, but its story begins during one of the most dramatic shifts in American coin history, and a few overlooked details could make collectors stop and take a much closer look. First coin, 1976 Bicentennial Quarter, created to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the United States, stands apart from nearly every Washington Quarter that came before it, because it carries the famous dual date of 1776, 1976, and a completely different reverse design that instantly catches the eye of collectors. Instead of the traditional eagle found on earlier quarters, this historic coin features a colonial drummer standing proudly beside a victory torch surrounded by 13 stars, a design chosen during a period of nationwide patriotic enthusiasm. Millions of Americans encountered these coins in everyday circulation, often spending them without a second thought. Yet decades later, many collectors still pause when one appears in pocket change. What makes this coin especially fascinating is that it represents a unique moment when an entire nation paused to honor its founding, turning an ordinary 25-cent piece into a lasting historical reminder of America's bicentennial celebration. The story behind the 1976 Bicentennial Quarter becomes even more interesting when you consider the atmosphere in which it was produced. During the mid-1970s, anticipation for the bicentennial reached nearly every corner of the country. Special commemorative events, patriotic displays, and historical tributes were everywhere, and the United States Mint joined the celebration by redesigning several circulating coins. The Denver Mint struck enormous quantities of bicentennial quarters, ensuring that the design reached millions of Americans. Because of those large production numbers, most examples remain relatively common today, but the sheer volume also created opportunities for striking differences, quality variations, and occasional minting anomalies that continue to capture the attention of collectors. Hidden among ordinary examples are coins that display unusual characteristics, creating a sense of mystery that keeps people searching decades after they were first released. At first glance, many bicentennial quarters appear nearly identical, but experienced collectors know that subtle details can dramatically influence desirability. Some examples display exceptionally sharp strike quality, allowing intricate design elements on the drummer, lettering, and torch to appear remarkably crisp. Others show weaker strikes where certain details seem softer or less defined. The luster of an untouched coin can create a completely different visual experience compared to one that's spent years in circulation. Tiny differences in surface preservation, contact marks, and overall eye appeal often separate an average specimen from one that earns serious collector attention. These distinctions may seem minor to a casual observer, yet they frequently become the details that collectors discuss, compare, and carefully evaluate when deciding whether a particular coin deserves a closer look. The intrigue deepens when possible minting variations and errors enter the conversation. While most bicentennial quarters were produced according to normal specifications, some collectors search for examples displaying off-center strikes, doubled lettering, die cracks, unusual strike alignment, or other verified mint-produced anomalies. A genuine error can transform an otherwise ordinary coin into something far more desirable, but identifying such pieces requires caution and knowledge. Many forms of post-mint damage can mimic true errors, leading to misunderstandings about a coin's significance. This is why seasoned collectors often recommend examining details carefully under magnification rather than relying on assumptions. The excitement comes not from certainty, but from the possibility that a coin overlooked for decades might possess a characteristic that sets it apart from the millions of others produced during the bicentennial era. For those hoping to evaluate a 1976 bicentennial quarter responsibly, several physical characteristics deserve attention. Weight can sometimes provide clues when compared against official specifications, particularly if questions arise regarding composition or authenticity. The coin's metal color should appear consistent with what collectors expect from a standard clad quarter, while unusual coloration may warrant further investigation. Strike alignment should be examined carefully to determine whether the obverse and reverse designs appear properly positioned. The rim shape can also reveal useful information because genuine minting irregularities often affect the border in recognizable ways. Collectors additionally look for letter doubling in dates, inscriptions, and design elements, although true doubling must be distinguished from machine doubling or simple wear. These observations are valuable starting points, but they rarely provide definitive answers without professional evaluation. When market values are discussed, realistic expectations become extremely important. Most circulated 1976D bicentennial quarters remain worth only modest amounts beyond face value because so many survive today. However, collector interest increases substantially when a coin displays exceptional preservation, unusually strong strike quality, certified high-grade status, or a verified mint era. In some situations, attractive examples have sold for hundreds of dollars, while particularly rare and authenticated specimens have reached into the thousands depending on condition, rarity, certification, and current market demand. These figures are estimates rather than guarantees, and actual outcomes vary significantly. The coin market is influenced by collector preferences, availability, grading standards, and broader economic conditions, meaning that no value should ever be assumed without careful research and verification. Imagine two bicentennial quarters discovered in different places. One spent decades moving through cash registers, vending machines, and pockets, gradually accumulating wear until only traces of its original brilliance remained. The other was quietly stored away shortly after issue, protected from circulation and preserving much of its original appearance. To an untrained eye, both coins may seem similar, yet collectors often view them very differently. Add a verified mint era or an unusually high certified grade to the equation, and the contrast becomes even more dramatic. Stories occasionally emerge of collectors who submitted seemingly ordinary coins for professional authentication only to discover unexpected qualities that elevated collector interest. Such examples fuel the ongoing fascination surrounding these quarters, even while reminding everyone that exceptional outcomes are uncommon and never guaranteed. Perhaps that enduring sense of possibility is what keeps the 1976D bicentennial quarter so captivating. It represents history, artistry, and the thrill of discovery all within a coin that many people have handled countless times. Somewhere, another bicentennial quarter may still rest unnoticed inside an old coin jar, tucked away in a forgotten collection, or waiting quietly in circulation for someone curious enough to examine it closely. Most will remain ordinary examples of an iconic American commemorative issue, yet every search carries a small element of suspense that continues to attract collectors generation after generation. And as intriguing as this bicentennial treasure may be, the next coin in our journey hides an entirely different mystery, one that has sparked debates, surprising discoveries, and collector excitement for years. Next coin, 2007 Utah State Quarter, part of the 50 State Quarters series, captures a dramatic chapter of American history in a design that immediately stands out from many other modern quarters. The reverse features two locomotives facing each other as they approach the historic Golden Spike Ceremony at Promontory Summit, where the first transcontinental railroad was completed in 1869. Behind those powerful engines, the landscape stretches outward, quietly reminding viewers of the vast western frontier that once challenged travelers, settlers, and railroad workers alike. Unlike many circulating coins that focus on symbols or landmarks, this quarter tells a specific story frozen in time, transforming a simple 25-cent piece into a miniature historical scene that continues to attract collectors years after its release. The creation of the Utah Quarter came during one of the most successful coin programs in United States mint history. By 2007, millions of Americans had become familiar with searching through pocket change for newly released state designs, and anticipation often surrounded each new issue. Utah's selection highlighted a moment that changed transportation, commerce, and communication across the nation. The design celebrates the joining of East and West through rail travel, a development that dramatically reduced travel times and connected distant regions in ways that had previously seemed impossible. Because the quarter represents such a pivotal event, many collectors appreciate it not only as currency, but also as a historical artifact that reflects innovation, expansion, and determination. A closer examination reveals details that are often overlooked during everyday use. The locomotives appear almost alive as they face one another across the coin's center, creating a sense of motion rarely seen in circulating coinage. The rails extend toward the famous Golden Spike location, drawing the viewer's eye deeper into the design. Even the arrangement of lettering contributes to the storytelling, balancing the imagery while reinforcing the historical theme. Coins that preserve these finer details with minimal wear often display a striking visual impact that is difficult to appreciate on heavily circulated examples. This contrast between worn and well-preserved pieces is one reason collectors frequently compare multiple examples of the same date and mint. As with many modern quarters, subtle differences can emerge during the minting process. Some examples show stronger strikes that bring out sharper details in the locomotives and lettering, while others display softer features due to normal production variations. Collectors sometimes report unusual characteristics such as die cracks, off-center strikes, double design elements, or other potential mint-related anomalies. Not every unusual appearance indicates a genuine error, however, and distinguishing between authentic mint varieties and post-mint damage requires careful study. This uncertainty often adds another layer of intrigue, because a coin that appears ordinary at first glance may deserve closer inspection under magnification. Condition plays an enormous role in how collectors evaluate the 2007 Utah State Quarter. A coin that spent years circulating through cash registers, pockets, and vending machines will typically show contact marks, worn surfaces, and reduced luster. By contrast, examples preserved shortly after release may retain original mint brilliance and sharper details. Professional grading services examine these factors closely, assigning grades that help establish a coin's condition relative to others. Even small differences in preservation can influence collector demand, especially when a coin survives in unusually high grade. This is why two quarters with the same date and design may generate very different levels of interest within the numismatic community. Discussions about value usually become more interesting when exceptional examples enter the picture. Most circulated 2007 Utah State quarters remain common and are generally worth only modest amounts above face value, if any. However, authenticated high-grade specimens and verified mint-era examples have occasionally attracted values ranging from hundreds to several $1,000s, depending on rarity, condition, grading, and market demand. Some unusual pieces documented in collector circles or auction archives have reached even stronger figures under rare circumstances, particularly when multiple desirable characteristics appear together. These outcomes are never guaranteed, and values can change significantly over time as collector preferences and market conditions evolve. Anyone examining a Utah quarter should pay close attention to physical details before drawing conclusions. Checking the coin's weight against official specifications can sometimes help identify abnormalities. Observing the metal color may reveal whether environmental exposure or other factors have affected the coin's appearance. Strike alignment should be reviewed carefully to determine whether both sides were properly positioned during production. The rim shape can offer clues about possible striking issues, while lettering should be examined for signs of doubling or unusual formations. These observations can be valuable starting points, but professional authentication remains one of the most reliable ways to verify whether an unusual coin possesses genuine collectible significance. What continues to make the 2007 Utah State Quarter fascinating is the combination of history, artistry, and possibility contained within a single circulating coin. Every example carries the same story of a nation linked together by steel rails, yet each surviving coin follows its own journey through time. Some remain hidden in old collections, some rest unnoticed in jars and drawers, and others continue circulating among people who may never realize the historical scene they are holding. For collectors, The appeal often lies in the search itself, carefully studying details, comparing examples, and wondering whether a seemingly ordinary quarter might reveal something unexpected when examined a little more closely. Next up, 1965 Washington quarter from the Philadelphia Mint, identifiable by the lack of a mint mark, arrived during one of the most dramatic transitions in modern American coinage. At first glance, it appears similar to countless other Washington quarters, carrying the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse. Yet hidden beneath that familiar appearance is a remarkable story tied to economic pressure, changing metal prices, and one of the most significant production shifts ever undertaken by the United States Mint. The year 1965 marked the beginning of a new era, when rising silver values forced the government to move away from the traditional 90% silver composition that Americans had known for generations. As a result, this quarter became one of the first circulating examples of a new copper-nickel-clad design, making it an important historical marker in the evolution of American currency. The circumstances surrounding its production created an atmosphere of uncertainty and urgency. During the early 1960s, silver coins were increasingly disappearing from circulation as people saved them, anticipating higher metal values. Coin shortages became a growing concern across the country, prompting major changes within the mint system. To discourage collecting based solely on mint locations, mint marks were temporarily removed from circulating coinage between 1965 and 1967. That decision means Philadelphia quarters from 1965 display no mint mark at all, a detail that continues to spark curiosity among collectors who encounter one for the first time. Every coin from that year carries traces of a nation adapting to economic realities while trying to keep commerce moving smoothly. Visually, the 1965 quarter offers subtle clues that distinguish it from its earlier silver predecessors. While the overall design remained familiar, careful observers often notice differences along the coin's edge, where the copper core may appear as a thin reddish layer between the outer nickel surfaces. Under proper lighting, original mint luster can create bright reflections that sweep across the coin's fields, revealing details often hidden on worn examples. The portrait of Washington, the arrangement of stars, and the reverse eagle design may seem ordinary at first, but collectors frequently spend considerable time examining these elements because small variations in strike quality and preservation can dramatically affect overall appeal. Among enthusiasts, part of the fascination comes from production irregularities and unexpected minting characteristics. During periods of high output, dies experience wear, machinery undergoes adjustments, and subtle differences can emerge between coins struck from different die pairs. Some collectors search for doubled lettering, die cracks, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or other verified mint errors that occasionally surface from this era. Not every unusual feature represents a genuine mint variety, however. Damage from circulation, environmental exposure, or improper handling can sometimes imitate legitimate mint-created anomalies. This uncertainty adds an element of investigation, encouraging collectors to look beyond surface appearances and study details with patience and care. Condition often becomes the dividing line between an ordinary example and a highly sought-after collectible. Many 1965 quarters circulated heavily for decades, accumulating scratches, contact marks, worn high points, and diminished luster. Others escaped extensive use and retained a much sharper appearance. Coins that preserve strong strike details, attractive surfaces, and original brilliance tend to generate greater collector interest. Professional grading services evaluate these characteristics carefully, and even a small increase in certified grade can significantly influence how a coin is viewed within the marketplace. The difference between a heavily worn example and an exceptionally preserved specimen can be surprisingly dramatic despite both coins sharing the same date and basic design. Market discussions surrounding the 1965 quarter become more intriguing when high-grade preservation or verified mint errors enter the picture. Most examples encountered in everyday collections remain relatively common and typically command modest premiums, if any, above face value. However, authenticated high-grade coins or confirmed mint-era examples have sometimes attracted values ranging from hundreds to several $1,000s, depending on rarity, condition, grading results, and collector demand. In especially unusual circumstances, certain auction record pieces discussed within numismatic circles have reached even higher levels. These outcomes are exceptions rather than expectations, and market values are never guaranteed. Prices can fluctuate based on availability, authentication standards, buyer interest, and broader market conditions. Anyone evaluating a 1965 Washington quarter should approach the process methodically. Weight can provide important clues because significant deviations from expected specifications may warrant further investigation. The metal color should be examined carefully, especially along the edge where composition characteristics may become more visible. Strike alignment between the obverse and reverse deserves attention, as unusual positioning can sometimes indicate a minting anomaly. Rim details may reveal evidence of production irregularities, while lettering should be inspected for potential doubling or other unusual formations. These observations can help identify coins worthy of additional research, but professional grading or authentication remains the most reliable path before making purchasing or selling decisions. The enduring appeal of the 1965 quarter lies in the fact that it represents a turning point hidden within an everyday object. It emerged during a period when American coinage was being reshaped by economic forces, yet it continued to circulate quietly through stores, banks, and pockets across the country. Decades later, collectors still examine these coins with curiosity because each example carries its own story of preservation, handling, and survival. Some remain tucked away in old collections, some continue to appear unexpectedly in inherited accumulations, and others reveal surprising characteristics only after close examination. The combination of historical significance, production changes, condition rarity, and the possibility of discovering something unusual ensures that the 1965 Washington quarter continues to occupy a fascinating place within the world of coin collecting. Last coin. 1966, United States Washington quarter emerged during a fascinating period in American coin history, a time when the nation was adjusting to major changes in the way its everyday money was produced. At first glance, the coin appears familiar, carrying the classic portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the long-running eagle design on the reverse. Yet beneath that familiar appearance lies a story shaped by economic pressures, evolving mint technology, and unprecedented demand for circulating coinage. Unlike many earlier Washington quarters that contained significant silver content, the 1966 issue belongs to the new generation of copper-nickel-clad coins introduced after the Coinage Act of 1965. To collectors, this date represents more than a simple quarter. It marks a chapter in the transformation of American currency that quietly unfolded in the pockets of millions of people. The circumstances surrounding its production were unlike those of many other quarters. During the mid-1960s, the United States faced a severe coin shortage as silver coins disappeared from circulation and public demand for change increased. To help stabilize the supply of coinage, the mint temporarily removed mint marks from circulating coins, meaning the 1966 quarter carries no mint mark regardless of where it was produced. This unusual decision has continued to intrigue collectors because it separates the coin from the traditional mint identification system that many hobbyists rely upon. Every 1966 quarter, therefore, reflects a unique period when efficiency and production volume became more important than distinguishing one mint facility from another. Examining the coin closely reveals details that often go unnoticed during ordinary transactions. George Washington's profile remains the centerpiece of the obverse, displaying a design that had already become one of the most recognizable images in American numismatics. On the reverse, the eagle appears poised and powerful, surrounded by carefully balanced lettering and decorative elements. When viewed under proper lighting, original mint luster can create flowing reflections across the coin's surface, giving well-preserved examples of vibrant appearance. Even small details in the feathers, lettering, and rim can become more pronounced when a coin has escaped decades of heavy circulation, creating a dramatic contrast between average examples and those that remain remarkably preserved. The story becomes even more interesting when collectors begin exploring production characteristics and potential mint variations. Because vast numbers of quarters were struck during this era, dies experienced extensive use and occasional wear-related changes. Some examples exhibit stronger strikes that reveal sharper design elements, while others show softer details due to normal production differences. Enthusiasts often examine coins for die cracks, doubled lettering, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or other verified mint-created anomalies. Many unusual-looking coins ultimately prove to be the result of circulation damage rather than genuine mint errors, which is why careful analysis and verification remain important. The possibility of discovering something unexpected continues to draw collectors toward this date decades after its release. Another aspect that fuels collector interest is the coin's long circulation history. Unlike commemorative issues that were often saved immediately, many 1966 quarters spent years changing hands in grocery stores, restaurants, gas stations, and banks across the country. Every scratch, mark, and worn surface may reflect a different chapter in that journey. Some examples remained in circulation for generations before entering collections, while others were set aside early and preserved in much better condition. This wide range of preservation levels gives collectors countless opportunities to compare specimens and appreciate how time affects a coin's appearance. The differences between heavily worn pieces and sharply preserved examples can be surprisingly dramatic. When discussion turns toward collector market values, condition and authentication quickly become central factors. Most circulated 1966 quarters remain common and generally trade near face value or modest collector premiums. However, authenticated high-grade examples that retain exceptional luster, strong strikes, and minimal surface disturbances may attract considerably stronger interest from collectors. Verified mint era coins can also command attention, particularly when the era is dramatic, well-documented, and professionally authenticated. Depending on rarity, preservation, grading results, and current market demand, some examples have been discussed within collector communities and auction records as reaching values ranging from hundreds to several $1,000s. These figures are estimates based on market observations and historical sales activity, and they should never be interpreted as guarantees. For anyone evaluating a 1966 Washington quarter, careful observation is essential. Weight should be compared against official specifications whenever questions arise about authenticity or unusual characteristics. The metal appearance can provide important clues, especially when examining the copper-nickel-clad construction along the coin's edge. Strike alignment should be checked to ensure the design elements appear properly positioned, while rim details may reveal evidence of unusual production circumstances. Lettering deserves close attention as well, since potential doubling or other irregularities can sometimes influence collector interest. Before making any buying or selling decisions, professional authentication or grading is strongly recommended because accurate identification often requires specialized knowledge and equipment. What makes the 1966 Washington quarter so compelling is not simply its age, but the historical crossroads it represents. It survived a period of rapid change in American coinage, traveled through countless hands, and continues to spark curiosity among collectors searching for overlooked details and untold stories. Whether examined for its historical significance, its production background, its condition rarity, or the possibility of a verified mint anomaly, this coin remains a fascinating reminder of a transformative era in United States numismatic history. And if you enjoy uncovering the stories hidden within everyday coins, be sure to subscribe for more historical coin discoveries, collecting insights, and remarkable journeys through the world of numismatics.